بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير. We will start lesson number 3 today, and as usual, before we start the lesson, we will discuss some of the key points, and then inshallah we will start the text. So today's lesson is very important about the passive voice, الفعل المبني للمجهول. So we all know that passive voice is used a lot in English language. It's also used a lot in Arabic language, and it's also used a lot in the Quran. So inshallah, if we understand it properly now, we will not have any problems, or we will be able to figure out, inshallah, how it is used in the Quran. So as usual, first of all, we will see what is meant by it. So it's basically jahila. It's the verb that has 3 root letters, and al-madari is yajhalu. So that means it's on the pattern of sami'a yasma'u, and al-masdar is jahalatan aw jahlan. It has masdarain, and ismul fa'il is jahilun, and ismul maf'ul is majhulun. So it means to ignore. So jahil means ignorant, and majhul means the one who has been ignored, or the one who has been left out. So that is called majhul. So why do we call it al-fi'l al-mabni lil-majhuli? Because in the passive voice, the doer or the file is not mentioned, is not known, or is not mentioned. So that's why we call it al-fi'l al-mabni lil-majhuli. Because when we talk about the active voice, we know who the file is or who the doer of the action is. But when we talk about the passive voice, then we are not sure, or we don't know, or we have been made not to know about the doer of the action. So there are a few things that we need to know. Number one, in passive voice, both past and present verbs start with dhamma. So that's number one. Both the past tense and the present tense start with dhamma, as we can see here. Here fa has dhamma, and here ya has dhamma. Then in the past tense, now first we talk about the past tense. In the past tense, there is always kasra on the second last letter. So this is the last letter, and this is the second last. So there will always be a kasra in the past tense in the second last letter. And it is not only for the verbs that have 3 root letters. It could be the derived forms of the verb, like sabbaha, and from sabbaha it will be subbiha. And similarly, jahada, from jahada it will be juhida. So all the 10 forms of the verb, or whatever forms of the verb are, the past tense will always be on the same pattern, that the second last letter will be maksur, yani it takes kasra. And we know that the past tense is always mabniyun. There are 2 types of verbs that are mabni, that are indeclinable: the past tense and fi'l al-amr. Fi'l al-amr and the past tense, we have taken this in lesson number 1, that they are always mabniyun, yani their ending will never change. So past tense, whether it is ma'lum or majhul, it will always take fatha in the end. And then when we talk about the present tense, there is always fatha on the second last letter. So as we can see here, this is the last letter, and the letter that comes before it, or the preceding letter, we can say, it always takes fatha. So that is the difference between the past tense and the present tense. So we can say that the past tense comes on the pattern of fu'ila, and the present tense comes on the pattern of yuf'alu. And the same pattern, the same goes to the present tense, that whatever verb form it is, and the second last letter will always take fatha. So that's the only thing that we need to know about the passive voice in Arabic language: fu'ila and yuf'alu. Now, if we see the example here, we say kataba Salimun darsan. So Salim wrote a lesson. So as we can see here, kataba is the verb, as we know that, and Salimun is fa'il, and darsan is maf'ul bihi, as we say, or we say maf'ul or maf'ul bihi. So here we know the fa'il, who the doer is. So when we know the doer, we call that this is al-ma'lum or al-ma'ruf, or the active voice. But when we say kutiba darsun, a lesson was written, now we don't know the writer of the lesson. We don't know who wrote it. That's why we call it passive voice, or that's why we call it majhul. In active voice, we say the fa'il, the doer is called al-fa'il. And in the passive voice, the doer is called na'ibul fa'il. Na'ibul fa'il, yani, it takes the place of the doer. It takes the place of the fa'il. That's why we call it na'ibul fa'il, yani the deputy of the fa'il, or the deputy of the doer. So now the difference is clear. This is active voice and this is passive voice. And of course, we know that fa'il is marfu. That's why na'ibul fa'il will always be marfu. Now, if you remember in lesson number 1, we have discussed about marfu'at, that there are 6 types of marfu'at in Arabic language. Mubtada is always marfu, khabar is also marfu, and the example was Allahu Akbaru. Then we have seen that the ismu kana is also marfu, kana Allahu aliman hakima. And then we have seen that the khabar of inna is always marfu, ya inna Allaha ghafurur rahim. And then number 5, we have seen that the fa'il is also always marfu. And number 6 is what we are taking today, that naibul fa'il is always marfu. So our marfu'at are complete now. All the 6 marfu'at should be clear now. That was for the past tense, and this is for the present tense. As we have seen that the present tense comes on the pattern of, this is the ma'lum and this is majhul. So first we look at the active voice. Yaktubu Salimun darsan, Salim writes a lesson. And then we say yuktabu darsun, a lesson is being written, or a lesson is written. Both of them are okay. So here it is on the pattern of yuf'alu. Yuf'alu, as we can see here, the second last letter always takes fatha. And the same thing here. Here Salimun is fa'il, and here darsun is na'ibul fa'il. So that means it has taken the place of fa'il. So the fa'il gets removed and it gets replaced by na'ibul fa'il. So basically the doer becomes like, as we say, it is not mentioned, and that's why we call it that this is majhul, that the fa'il has been dropped. The fa'il does not play any role anymore, and maf'ul bihi takes the place of the fa'il. That's why it is called na'ibul fa'il. And the same thing that we have seen in the regular form of the verb. For example, خلق الإنسان, he created, خلق الإنسان. And when we say he created, it means it refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in naibul fa'il, the same thing is here. If naibul fa'il, as we can see here, is masculine, then the verb should also be masculine. So insanu is masculine. That's why the verb that we use for it is also masculine. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ, a man was created. And of course, we know the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but sometimes there is no need to mention because the creator is known. We already know about it. And then we say, if naibul fa'il is feminine, like al-ardu, the verb should also be feminine. Now, why al-ardu is feminine? We know that in Arabic, ash-shams wal-ard, these are some of the feminine, like they don't have any specific reason, but they have been used as feminine. So because al-ardu is feminine, that's why the verb that we have to start is also, or we have to use, is also feminine. Khuliqat, it was basically sakin, and we know that when we connect sakin with al, then we connect it with kasra. So that's why it is khuliqatil ardu, the earth was created. The same thing that we learned about active voice, the same thing is about the passive voice. The only thing here, in the active voice, we will say خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْإِنسَانَ and خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْأَرْضَ. But here we will say خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ وَخُلِقَتِ الْأَرْضُ. Now we need to note one thing, that passive voice construction can't be formed from intransitive verbs. Al-fi'l al-lazimu, like the verb. And what is intransitive verb? We have discussed in book number 2. Like, it does not require maf'ul bihi. It can communicate the meaning by itself. So, for example, dhahaba, he went; kharaja, he went out; and karuma, he became honored. So here, these af'al, they are not used as passive voice, because they are al-af'al al-lazima. They are intransitive verbs. We can't say dhuhiba or khurija or kurima. It's not possible. So that's the only thing that we need to remember. And the easy thing is, whenever you see, like in the Quran, whenever you see a verb that has been used in the passive voice, we know that this is not al-fi'l al-lazim. This is al-fi'l al-muta'addi. All right. Do you remember the examples of the category of the verbs that is called mithal? Mithal wawi. These are the verbs that start with waw, right? Like wajada. So wajada, when you make the past tense, and in the past tense, when you make passive, no change will take place. It is wujida, on the pattern of fu'ila. But there is some abnormality in the present tense. In the present tense, what happens? The waw gets dropped. It's not yawjidu, it is yajidu. So that means one letter has been dropped. And the reason is waw is not compatible with fatha. But when we talk about the passive voice, then it comes back. So it's on the pattern of yuf'alu, it will be yujadu. And we know that waw and dhamma are sisters, they are compatible. So that's why now the waw comes back. So when we talk about the active voice, the waw gets dropped. But when we talk about the passive voice, in the present tense only, then the waw comes back. So that's the only thing that we need to remember. Similarly, walada, yalidu, and the past tense will be the same on the pattern of fu'ila, it will be wulida. But when we talk about the past tense, present tense, it will be yalidu, but here it will be yuladu. And we have the beautiful example from the Quran, lam yalid wa lam yulad. So as you can see here now, he neither begets nor is he begotten. So why here it is sakin and why here it is sakin?
Because of lam.
Because of lam, okay. We know that when lam is used, it changes the tense from present to past, but it makes it majzoom, and also the meaning becomes past. But when it refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is always present, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always was, always is, and always will be. So that's why the translators, they translate it in the present tense rather than the past tense. So that's why it is he neither begets. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. But if you say lam adhab, you will say I didn't go. So in everyday life, when we use lam, it is translated as past. But here it is translated as present. Some of the translators, they have also translated it in the past, but the most appropriate translation will be in the present. Okay, we are done with the passive voice. Any example, any questions that you would like to ask? I hope that's clear, and many things that we have discussed about. All right. Alhamdulillah. So the second thing here is ayya an-nisbah. Ayya an-nisbatu, the ya that is used to show the association of someone with something. For example, Hindiyun means Indian. So this is formed from Al-Hindu. Al-Hind, as we know, is the name of the country. But when we add ya with that, and we have to remember that this ya is mushaddad, it comes with tashdid. That's why you can see here that ya has tanween on it. And normally you remember we have discussed many times that ya does not like to have dhamma or dhammatain. But when it has tashdid on it, and then it is happy to accept it. Then it says, I have no problem because someone is there to help me. So that's why we can put tanween on it. So that's why it becomes a Hindiyun. So from Al-Hind, Hindiyun. From Misru, Misriyun. And from America, it will be Amerikiyun. So this is called Ya an-Nisbah, which is used to show the association. And we know that this is a language, and in language there are always some exceptions. So for akhun, it is not akhiyun, it is akhawiyun. Akhawiyun. And basically, if you look at the root letters of akh, the root letters of akh are hamza, kha, and waw. And how do we know? When we say akhu, that waw comes back. But this is the short form of akhu, and this is akhun. So that's why when we say akhawiyun, then the waw comes back. Similarly, the root letters of abun are hamza, ba, and waw. And that's why when we say he is a fatherly figure, then it will be abawiyun. And nabiyun, the root letters of nabiyun are nun, ba, and wa. It's from naba. So that's why it's nabiyun. And when we use ya with that, it will be nabawiyun, prophetic. So this is not irregular, but like in a way, like it will be difficult for a beginner to say like he will try to use or make it akhiyun. So that's why we say it's irregular, because waw is there and we don't see it. So when we add ya to that, then it becomes akhawiyun, abawiyun, and nabawiyun. What kind of ya is this?
Ya
Nisbah. Okay. Now there is another kind of ya, which is called ismul jins al-jam'iyu. We also use ya over there, but it represents the whole jins of something, the whole jins of something. This is also, by the way, ya, and it also has tashdid on it. And these are these kinds of nouns like ismul jins. They are of two kinds. Those which make their irregular or singular with yun, for example, Arabun, Arabs, and when we want to say an Arab, we will say Arabiyun. And similarly, Turkun means the people, the Turks. And when we want to say someone is Turkey or someone is Turkish, then we will say Turkiyun, an Arab and a Turk. And then there are some nouns, the singular with ta marbuta. They have singular with the ta marbuta, but normally we don't use them. We use the plural form. For example, normally we use tufahun and we use shajarun, whereas the singular form is tufahatun and shajaratun. Shajaratun has been used a lot, around 17 times in the Quran. So shajaratun is singular, the plural is shajarun, and the plural of shajarun is ashjarun. So that means we can have more than one plurals, as we can see here. So tufahatun means one apple, but normally when you go to buy apples, you don't say I'm going to buy an apple. Normally say I'm going to buy apples. So that's why in Arabic we use tufahun. Similarly, we use samakun, and we don't say samakatun. Normally when we eat akaltu as-samak, I ate fish, instead of saying akaltu as-samakata. So these are also, this is also one type of ya, which is used to show the association of something with something. But it is used for ismul jins, for the jins. It represents the whole jins of something. So from al-yahudu, it will be, if one person is Jew, what will we say? Yahudiyun. And from an-Nasara, we will say Nasraniyun. Yeah, a Christian and a Jew. But for Muslim, from Muslimuna, we have Muslimun. Because Muslim doesn't need to add anything with that. And it is Salim, Muslimuna. And when we talk about singular Muslim, we simply say Muslimun. All right, so we discussed about the passive voice, how to use passive voice in the past tense, how to use it in the present tense. And then we talked about ya al-nisbah, and then we talked about ya al-jins, which is used for the whole jins of something. And now, inshallah, we can start the lesson. Ad-darsu al-thalithu, lesson number 3. Al-mudarrisu, so we have the teacher, and az-Zubairu and Zubair. Lima ta'akhartum ya ikhwanu.
Why al with Zubair, sir?
It's up to the Arabs. Al-Hasanu, Al-Husaynu, Al-Zubairu, they can use it. But for us, we
Oh.
can't. Yes. And there are very few nouns, not a lot of them, where they use al with them. And this is called al-Azza'idah. It does not have any meaning. It is called al-Azza'idah because Zubair is also already its alam. It's a proper noun. So nothing will happen to that when you use al with that. But normally we don't use al with all the proper nouns. Lima ta'akhkhartum ya ikhwanu. Why did you come late, O brothers? Ta'akhkhara yata'akhkharu ta'akhkhuran, to be late. And if you want to say that someone made someone late, that will be akhara yuakhiru ta'khiran, to make someone late. But when you talk about being late by yourself, then we say ta'akhara yata'akhkharu ta'akhkhuran. Lima ta'akhkhartum ya ikhwanu. Why did you come late, or why are you late, my brothers? الزبير لأن المطعم فتح اليوم متأخرا, because the restaurant opened late today. لأن, because we know, and the noun that comes after لأن will be always mansub. So this is ismu anna, and khabaru anna can be a verb as well. So this is khabaru anna. فتح اليوم متأخرا, it opened late today, because the restaurant opened late today. So futiha is on the pattern of fu'ila. It's for the past tense. Al-mudarrisu mata futiha, when did it open? Az-Zubairu futiha as-sa'ata as-sadisata, it opened at, yes, 7 o'clock, right?
7.
All right.
6, sir.
6.
Sadisa, 6 o'clock. Okay.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
All right. So as-sa'ata as-sadisata, why is it mansub?
It's maf'ulun bi ni here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's maf'ul
Yeah,
fihi.
maf'ulun
Maf'ul fihi.
bihi.
That is used to talk about the time or the day or like the year. So this is always mansub. It opened at 6 o'clock. Al-mudarrisu wa mata yuftahu kulla yawmin. Okay, yuftahu, is it present or past?
Present.
Present. Is it active or passive? Present. Is it
Passive.
passive? Why is that?
Because of the first letter is Dhamma and the second last no kasra is present.
Excellent. There is no kasra over there, or we can say that the second last letter has fatha on it.
Fatha.
Yeah. وَمَتَى يُفْتَحُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. And when does it open? Every day. When does it open? Every day. Jabir says, يُفْتَحُ السَّاعَةَ السَّادِسَةَ إِلَّا رُبْعًا. It opens at, yes?
Quarter
Five,
past 6.
Quarter past
So,
6.
6
40.
o'clock except
Quarter to 6.
Quarter to
15 minutes.
Yes, quarter to 6. Yeah, 5:45.
Quarter to 6.
Yes, 5:45, right? Asata asadisata illa, like when in English we say quarter to 10 or quarter to 5 or quarter to 6. When we say 2, that means like 15 minutes before 6 o'clock. So it opens at basically a quarter to 6. Al-mudarrisu ijlisu waftahu al-kitaba. Okay, ijlisu waftahu al-kitaba. So this is fi'l al-amr, right? You all sit and you all open your books. Ijlisu waftahu al-kitaba. So when we connect it, then it will be waftahu al-kitaba, and open your book. Aina kitabuka ya Idrisu? Where is your book, O Idris? Idrisu. Suriqa kitabi ya ustadu? My book was stolen. Suriqa kitabi ya ustadu? My book was stolen. And as we can see here, from saraqa, it is suriqa. That means it was stolen. It was stolen, then what was stolen? My book, kitabi.
My book.
So kitabi will be naibul fa'il. Ya ustadu, O teacher. المدرس سرق كتابك. Your book was stolen, question mark. متى وأين, where and when. What kind of wow is this?
واو الحال.
واو العطف.
العطف.
واو العطف.
Yeah, because mata is adverb and aina is adverb. So we know that al-atf is used for two similar kind of things. Idrisu suriqa al-barihata. It was stolen last night, as we can see here. Al-barihata maf'ulun fihi. Min ghurfati, from my room. Wa ana ghaibun, and I was absent. Anha, from it. So this is the word-by-word translation. But when we do the running translation, we will say it was opened. It was stolen last night in my absence. وَأَنَا غَائِبٌ عَنْهَا, in my absence, when I wasn't over there. Anha, ha refers to what?
The book, Ustad.
Book is
غرفتي
masculine.
sir.
غرفة.
غرفتي.
غرفتي.
Yeah, so ha refers to the room. That I wasn't present in my room, I was not there, and it was stolen from my room in my absence. وسرقت معه. Okay, who here refers to the
book.
book. Excellent. وسرقت معه أشياء أخرى. And there were other things that were stolen with it. Okay, so سرقت is used for feminine. Where is the feminine noun or naibul file over here? أشياء.
غير العاقل أشياء.
غير العاقل, excellent. So شيء, and the plural of شيء is أشياء, and we know that the broken plural is treated as singular feminine. And أشياء is موصوف and أخر is the صفة. So وسرقت معه أشياء أخر, and there were some other things that were stolen with it. All right, now أشياء أخر. ساعتي وحذائي ومعظم ملابسي. Why meme has dhamma over here? Because this is badal from ashiya. So ashiya is marfu, and we know the i'rab of badal will be the same as it is the i'rab of the noun that precedes it or comes before it. Sa'ati, because we have ya al-mutakallim over there, that's why we cannot see dhamma over here. My watch. Wahidai, and my shoes. We cannot see dhamma because of ya. So that is called al-dhamma al-muqaddara, right? Wa mu'adhamu, and here it tells us that basically it is badal from ashiya'u. Wa mu'adhamu malabisi, and most of my clothes. Malabis is the plural of malbas. Malbas, and the plural is malabis. Wa mu'adhamu malabisi, and most of my clothes. أَوَّضَكَ اللَّهُ مِنْهَا. أَوَّضَ يُعَوِّضُ تَعْوِيضًا, meaning compensate. Past tense is used for dua, we know that. May Allah compensate you from it. Minha. Ha refers to what? We need to know
أشياء.
that. Ashiya. Excellent.
أشياء.
Excellent. So may Allah compensate you with better things from what you have lost. Awada yu'awidu ta'widan, to compensate. Uridu, I want. We have discussed about this in book number 2. Al-ana, now. An as'ala, or as'alu, or as'ali.
أسألكم.
أن
Because of
أسأل.
As'alakum. Okay. Uridu an as'alakum. Okay. What about as'i?
أسئلة.
As'ilatan. Yeah, I want to ask. You know, after I, we will always have the noun that is mansub. So as'alakum, I want to ask you. As'ilatan, some questions. Fi ma darastum amsi, some questions that you learned yesterday. Ma here, fi, yani allati darastum amsi, the lessons that you learned yesterday. أريد الآن أن أسألكم أسئلة. I want to ask you some questions. فيما درستم أمسي, from what you learned yesterday. فيما, from what you learned yesterday. في أي شهر ولد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم? In which month Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم was born? ولد. So what kind of tense is this? Passive.
فعل.
Yeah,
Passive.
ولد.
مجهول.
Yeah, مجهول.
وإلا
ولد
مجهول.
فعل. He was born في شهر ربيع الأول. Yes, he was born in the month of ربيع الأول.
ربي الأول.
وفي أي سنة ولد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا جابر? And in which year Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم was born? Jabir, ما أدري, I don't know. Why he says ما أدري? Why not لا أدري?
For the
He
present.
doesn't know at that time, sir.
At the time being, yes. At the time being. I don't know at the time being. ما أدري, I don't know. لا أدري means I didn't know and I don't know and I wouldn't know maybe. But ما أدري means before maybe I knew it, but now I forgot. So ما أدري, I don't know. المدرس ألم تدرسوا هذا? Didn't you learn it? هذا here is in the place of
For emphasis.
لا مفعول به. تدرسوا, you learn, and هذا this. Didn't you learn this? And we know that هذا can be used as in the place of مفعول به, but this is mabni, that's why we don't know that this is mansub. Okay, didn't you learn it? Bala, why not? Darasnahu. Okay, now darasnahu. Okay, who refers to what? Now it refers to
Who is the مفعول به for
هذا, for هذا, yeah? For هذا, yeah. Bala, darasnahu. Why not? We learned it. ولكنني نسيت, but I forgot. ولكنني نسيت. نسي ينسى. And from Nasiya Yansa, we have, if you do the conjugation, I hope you have memorized that. And if you go to the number 13 form, it will be Nasitu. And the 14th form will be Nasina. Rabbana la tuakhidna in Nasina aw akhtana. So inshallah now you will not forget. Man ya'rifu hadha? Who knows this? As you can see, again, see here, hadha is in the place of maf'ul bihi. Who knows this? إدريس ولد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عام, because this is مفعول فيه and used as مضاف, and after that will be, the numbers will be مضاف إليه. 70 و500 للميلاد. 500 500 70 70 yeah, للميلاد, the Gregorian calendar, from the time of birth, from the time of the birth of Isa alayhi salam. So عام 70 و500 للميلاد, he was born sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in 570 miladi. هذا صحيح. This is true. A very simple sentence, مبتدا and خبر. في أي عام ولدت أنت يا إدريس? In which year were you born, O Idris? ولدت عام, as you can see here, now we have fatha over here. عام 85 و300 وألف للهجرة. Okay, so you can start from here. 1000, 1000, 300, 300, 80, 80, 5, 13 or 1385 للهجرة. للهجرة, from the hijrah, from the calendar of hijrah. Yeah, so I was born in 1385, in the 1385 of hijrah. As we know, there are two types of calendars, the Hijri calendar and the Gregorian calendar. وفي أي عام ولدت أنت يا أحمد? And in which year were you born, O Ahmad. Walitta anta. What do you remember about anta?
Yeah, here is anta for emphasizing.
For emphasis, للتوكيد. Excellent. Okay. And what kind of توكيد is this? التوكيد اللفظي. Okay. We discussed in lesson number 1, and it is used for emphasis. And the example that we took from the Quran was Ya Adam uskun anta wa zawjuka al-jannah. Ya Adam uskun anta wa zawjuka al-jannah. So the same example here, similar to that. So that's why we are learning this, because when we learn this, we can implement it, what we are learning from the Quran. وفي أي عام ولدت أنت يا أحمد? And in which year were you born, O Ahmad? Ahmed, yes, what will be this? How will you read it? Walidtu. Walidtu, right? Walidtu. I was born. I was born. Yes, عام 67 وتسعمائة وألف للميلاد. 1967 للميلاد. So the same thing as I told you, if you want to read the numbers, so you start from the opposite direction. So it will be 1000 900, and then we have 60, and then 7. So 1967. أين ولدت يا أحمد? Where were you born, O Ahmad? ولدت في باكستان. I was born in Pakistan. ولدت في باكستان. Pakistan ممنوع من الصرف. That's why it is Pakistan. أنت إذن باكستاني. Oh, then you are Pakistani. Then you are a Pakistani. إذن is used for like then. That means it's a dharf, and it is used like to talk about something, like when you mention something. So you say Anta إذن باكستاني. Then you are a Pakistani, or that means you are a Pakistani. Pakistaniyun, ya anisbah, right? To show the association. Okay. Isma'u ya ikhwanu. Listen, O brothers. Ashrahu al-ana. I will explain now. Qa'idatan, a rule. Nahwiyatan, grammatical. Muhimmatan, important. أشرح الآن قاعدة نحوية مهمة. I will explain an important grammatical rule. And now it's not difficult to say.
Sorry, isma'u fi'l al-amr.
Yes.
Why ya ikhwanu not mansoob, sir?
What do you mean by yeah? If you want to say it's, you can say it's mahallan, yani mansoob. It's in the place of mansoob. But this construction, ya ikhwanu, this is a fixed construction, mabniyun. When we use ya, then the noun after that is mabniyun bidamma. So ya ikhwanu is mansoob, mahallan mansoob. That's why you were like, why do we have to say mahallan mansoob? So now we know that this is mahallan mansoob. It's in the place of nasb. All right, clear? الفعل
Clear, sir.
الفعل إما مبني للمعلوم. So the verb is either, do you remember either? The verb is either passive voice, وإما مبني, active voice, وإما مبني للمجهول, or passive voice. So the verb is
but
either
is
active
amma,
voice.
not imma.
Imma.
Sorry. Here is not amma.
Imma. Amma is coming next. This is Imma. Okay. الفعل إما مبني للمعلوم وإما مبني للمجهول. The verb is either active voice or passive voice. Either or. And you can see here, إما مبني للمعلوم is a complete sentence, and واو is used for atf. And then again, we have a complete sentence. Imma. Do you remember the Quranic example of Imma?
Imma shakiran wa imma kafura.
Excellent. Imma shakiran wa imma kafura. Excellent. Surah Al-Insan. Amma. Now here we have Amma. Amma means as far. Imma means, Imma comes with the tikrar of Imma. After Imma, you will always find Imma. Like in English, we have either or. In Arabic, we have Imma, and then after that, the second idea will also start with Imma. Whereas Amma always comes with Fa. Amma comes with the combination of Fa. So as for al-mabni lil-ma'lumi, as for active voice, فمثل, so it's like قتل يقتل, as we have discussed many times, he killed and he kills. وأما المبني, and as for passive للمجهول, passive voice, فمثل, so it's like قتل يقتل, قتل, he was killed, يقتل, he is killed. So this is what now we have this in Arabic, something that we discussed in the beginning of the lesson in English. So Amma, do you remember the example of Amma from the Quran? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Yeah, okay. So that example, and Imma, and this is the example of Imma. So inshallah, if you remember one example from the Quran, and then you will never forget it. يُحْذَفُ. Now, can you tell me what kind of verb is this, active or passive? Passive. يُحْذَفُ الْفَاعِلُ. Excellent. The file is dropped. مع الفعل, from the فعل, المبني للمجهول. So the file is dropped from the passive voice. Okay, here ma gives the meaning of min. Sometimes you need to see that sometimes a preposition can give a different meaning. So يحذف الفاعل, the file is dropped من الفعل, it will be easier to see now, from the verb al-mabni al-majhuli, from the passive verb. So the file is dropped, as we discussed in the beginning. Okay, this is fatha. وَيَحُلُّ, حَلَّ يَحُلُّ. It means to settle, to come down, to descend, or to take the place of. وَيَحُلُّ الْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ, and مفعول بِهِ, and مفعول به محله takes its place. ويحل, and it takes, what takes? المفعول به. المفعول به takes محله, its place. So حل يحل, and اسم ظرف مكان will be محل, right? محل is also used for the place, like shop. محل it's also used for the shop, and the plural is محلات. So محله, its place. ويحل المفعول به محله, and مفعول به takes its place. ويسمى, what kind of verb is this? Active or passive?
Passive.
Passive. Okay, passive. Present or past?
Present.
Present.
يسمى is present, no?
Excellent. ويسمى, it is called نائب فاعل. Yeah, it is called نائب فاعل, نائب فاعل. وهو مرفوع, and it is مرفوع. So the same thing that we discussed in the beginning, that naib file is always مرفوع. نقول, we say, قتل الجندي الجاسوس, the soldier killed the spy, and قتل الجاسوس, the spy was killed. So here, as we can see, here we have the file, but here jasus becomes or takes place of the file, and it is called naibul file, in the place of the doer. يسمع الناس الأذان بوضوح. People hear adhan clearly or with clarity. And يسمع الأذان بوضوح. Adhan is heard with clarity or clearly. So again, as we can see here, الناس, here is the file, and here it is dropped because يسمع is passive, and the place of the file has been taken by the naibul file, and that's why it will be يسمع الأذان بوضوح. Adhan is heard clearly or with clarity. Ya Muawiyatu. Yes, please read it. Ibn al-Fa'la. Ibn al-Fa'la, what does it mean?
It's mean make
a verb. Excellent. Bana yabni, bana yabni, wa
yeah,
fi'l al-amr. Bana yabni, and fi'l al-amr will be ibni. Ibn al-Fa'la. So make a verb.
Ibn al-Fa'la.
Yeah, في هذه الجملة, in this sentence, للمجهول, for the passive. So make a passive from this sentence. خلق الله الإنسان من طين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created man with clay. And Muawiyah says خلق الإنسان من طين. Man was created from clay. خلق الإنسان. So here الإنسان has taken place of the file and نائب الفاعل. It has become نائب الفاعل من طين from clay. الإنسان هنا نائب فاعل. And it's confirmed here that al-insan here is the deputy of the doer. It is naibu fa'il. Al-mudarrisu hati mithalan akhara. Give another example. Akharu, and the plural of akharu is akharuna. Akharu for the masculine. Akharuna. And then we have ukhra. Ukhra is used for feminine. And the plural of feminine ukhra is ukharu. Ashiya'a ukharu. So the plural of ukhra is ukharu, and the plural of akharu is akharuna. Okay, give another example. للفعل المبني للمجهول of the passive voice. يا إدريس أو إدريس. إدريس. قتل عمر رضي الله عنه وهو يصلي بالناس. Umar رضي الله عنه was killed when he was leading the prayer. Yusalli, when it comes with the preposition of ba, that means to lead the prayer. Wahwa yusalli bin nasi, and when he was leading the prayer, he was the imam. In everyday life, we say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin. So when it comes with the preposition of ala, that means to send blessings. But when it comes with the preposition of ba, that means to lead the prayer. وَهُوَ يُصَلِّي بِالنَّاسِ, and he was leading the prayer fil masjid nabawi, in Masjid Nabawi. Ya Ahmadu, O Ahmad, hati, give mithalan.
هاتي مثال مفعول به.
Akhara. I was waiting for this. Akhara, yeah. Mithalan is mansub and akhara is also mansub. Akhara ala an yakuna al-fi'la, that the verb will be fihi, in it, mudari'an, present. So now you have to give the example where the fi'l or the tense will be present. Ahmadu yuqtalu alafun minan nasi fil hurubi. Thousands of people are killed in the wars. Yuqtalu alafu minan nasi fil hurubi. Thousands of people are killed in the wars. Harbun, and the plural of harb is hurub. All right, so I think, alhamdulillah, enough for today. So inshallah, we will continue from the next lesson along with the exercises. It's a little bit long lesson, not the longest, but mashallah, this lesson also has lots of new ideas, but the best idea is passive voice. And if you are able to master passive voice, inshallah, your reading of Arabic language will be much easier. And now, inshallah, when you are reciting the Quran, you can easily figure out any verb in the Quran, whether it is active or passive. As of now, even if you don't know the meaning, that doesn't matter, that's okay. But at least you should be able to figure out whether it is active or passive. So inshallah, once you figure that out, and once you know the meaning, then inshallah, it will be much easier. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام.